It was just another one of those things. This opportunity kind of arose and I was like, this feels right. So I didn't even wait till we got it going. Like I just sunk my teeth into it. I quit. I knew we wanted to be in Inglewood. Got a house in Inglewood and started working on the business plan. And yeah, that was not the best decision because you're totally renovating this 1928 bungalow at the same time as trying to start a business. Yeah, that was the pivot. Rules changed and that triggered Blake to be like, yo, Dan, now anybody can start a brewery.
Welcome to the Calgary Sessions. This is episode number 161. I'm your host, Jeff Humphreys. Before I get into it today, I've been asking people to subscribe and and I don't know if they quite get what I mean on Apple and Spotify. Either throw up some stars or actually write some text as a review. Mm-hmm. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Today's guest, this is my good friend. I don't know how close you are to him, but Mr. Costello, Mr. James Costello did the intro.
Oh, yeah?
Whenever he, it's funny, you and I were just talking about nightclubs and him and I go back to the embassy back in the day. That's how long I've known Costello. So usually when he recommends people, I'm quick to say yes. So please name and who you are.
Dan Allard, the co-founder of Cold Garden Brewery and exiting chair of the Inglewood BIA. It was a little bit of community give back. And I guess just love basketball, love snowboarding, love dogs.
Which is interesting. You texted me, you emailed me earlier today. I have two dogs too. I've had dogs for, I don't know, probably 15 years now. It's a thing. It's a thing. It's a different, and I don't know for you, but it's that thing that you come home to. And it's just this energy, this force that brings you there. You need to be there. You're accountable. It's all the things. And if you're a dog owner, you get it. If you're not, you don't.
Yeah. And as I get older with some self-reflection on why family dogs are so clutch, it's because you look back and you're like, that was a big piece of therapy. Yeah. Having grown up with a family dog, when you're a kid trying to learn the big bad world, you take your dog for a walk. Mm-hmm. In my case, straight up talk to your dog. Yeah. So looking back, it stands to reason that more and more people are getting on board because you can tell your dog stuff you can't tell anybody.
Yeah, for sure. And just the quiet moments they give you too, right?
Totally, yeah.
Whether it's the walks or whether it's just you and the dog hanging out, it's just that. Just that energy is enough to either calm you down or just kind of get your mind working properly that you can kind of figure out whatever it is you're working on.
Yeah. We don't deserve them, but we got them.
Yeah. I agree. And it's funny, a dude I had on here, DJ Kov, Calgary guy, he's through and through dog guy too. Yeah. And it always catches me off guard. I never talk about it. And so it's always interesting when it comes up because
Right.
Yeah, it's just, it's different.
Yeah, and there's no you're a casual dog person. Yeah. It's
you're in.
If you don't know someone's a dog person, then you find out that's always over the top. Oh, no, I'm a dog person. I will die for that thing.
Totally. Yeah, everything revolves decisions, timing, budget, all of it. Have you seen one of these?
Yeah.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I always ask because I love
perusing the list. Yeah, there's some, Kelly Street and James Costello, saw that, of course. And Haley Daniels was cool to look at. Haley, we met through the Brewery fundraiser before she went to Tokyo.
Okay.
And, anyway, some just heavy hitters, man. It's awesome.
And Haley's a force.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just athlete. Marketing.
The marketing piece, she got it at a young age.
James, big buffoon on here, loved it. Loved watching him fumble.
You're welcome, Costello. And the reason I ask, it's not an ego thing. It allows me to give, it tells me how much context I have to give the guest. I'm okay, but you already get it. So walk this thing back. Where you grew up, how you grew up, parents, siblings, jobs, school, and then we'll kind of talk to where you are today.
Sure. Interrupt me where you want because I can talk. But the
more the guest talks, the better I am.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, so it all started in the beating heart of the nation, Winnipeg. All right. So I was born in Winnipeg, moved when I was a kid, bounced around when I was young, nomadic family. Pops is in the trades, mom real estate.
Yep.
So they just chased the boom towns.
Yep.
Prior to me were 4 siblings, Fort McMurray with the boom town. Then, Winnipeg was where my dad's family's from, Red River settlement area, Métis family. And then went to Barrie, Ontario, and then we settled in the center of the universe. Not close to Barrie, Red Deer, Alberta, not T-Dot. And and then we settled there for some reason.
How old
Don't
were
know
you?
why. I was like kindergarten, so just in
so
time for all of my grade schooling in Red Deer. So I grew up in Red Deer for sure.
Yep.
Loved it. Around 60,000 people, big enough to have 3 high schools. Ours, Lindsay Thurber, go Raiders. Those were is the 3rd largest high school in the province. So you kind of got that high school experience that a big city would get. But you got the small town charm, you could bike across the whole city and that kind of thing. So it was cool to grow up in Red Deer at that time, 60,000 people-ish. Little rougher now, but
way different.
Yeah. And then at university time, I left. Came to Calgary at 17, right after high school, and stayed here.
Been here ever since.
Yeah, graduated after, I think I probably took 5 or 5.5 years to figure my way through college. And then after graduating University of Calgary, I moved to Montreal for a year, chasing a pretty actress. And after selling my first company, took a little bit of time with her. And Montreal, I just probably would not be around today if I stayed in that city. That city
Would have got you.
Oh man, I love to party in that city. Has everything you want. And so yeah, I made the smart choice to come back, what I call home, to Calgary, and then got back in touch, hung out with Blake still, my business partner at Cold Garden. And, but that was the beginnings. Yeah. That was the origin story.
What'd your dad do? What kind of trade was he in?
So he came from, as I said, like a little community outside of Winnipeg called Saint Laurent, and came from a big family, Métis family, 12 siblings, and living in a tiny shack, no running water, that kind of deal. And so, he's got stories of them growing up picking frog legs for big fancy restaurants, not knowing what they're giving up, what those frog legs are getting charged. But stories like that. And then eventually they just learned skills. And so carpentry eventually was what they ended up getting into, most of the uncles. And then, just building places like Syncrude, being the crazy guys that would go up on the tower stacks with scaffolding and whatever it could to get the family some cash. So yeah, very nomadic lifestyle. And he was swinging a hammer until, I don't know how old I was, but at a certain point, and my mom was just always like, keeping the family budget tight, like understanding how to run that side of the business, the family business. And so she was a real estate agent at the time, and my dad got hurt in carpentry, and some big pipe was coming down off a big stack, and he cranked his neck up to look at it. I think it just hit his elbow, but it was just did something that impeded his work. And so it turned out that there was lots of deficiencies with inspectors, and there wasn't very good inspectors apparently. And so this was an opportunity for my dad, under the guidance of my mom most likely, to go and finish his high school. Got his GED in his 40s, and was just an absolute pro on building stuff, built everything from homes to power plants. And they needed a guy like that was doing inspections. So the city of Calgary had an opening after he screamed through his certificates, challenged courses, whatever. And so he was commuting from Red Deer to Calgary every single day, working in City Hall here as a building inspector. Which, was just cool. You'd know it was summer because he'd drive down the highway with his arm on the window on the little Dodge Neon, and sun would be coming up in the east, and then he'd, on the way home, he'd be setting in the west. And so his left arm was just like so dark, and his right arm was, normal indigenous. And so, it was so funny. He's like, oh yeah, it's summertime. Pops is working, driving back and forth every single day.
Was it funny what you remember?
Oh yeah.
It's like, it's so obscure.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But as a kid, it's just like one of those impactful memories. You're like,
totally. Yeah. 100%. So yeah, they chased each other. You know, they were chasing around the boom towns, and he was, effectively, you know, I don't know if he got the designation, but Red Seal carpentry, if that's a thing, that probably would be best defined.
Yep. My dad built homes for 35 years.
Oh, sweet.
He was a framer by trade.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's some of the most rewarding work. Like I did lots of renovations with the parents. Every place we moved into, we kind of grew up. We were broke. And starting off in a fourplex with, 3 kids, 2 of them kind of transient. So 5 kids plus the parents in a fourplex. You know, not all 4 units of a fourplex, just the one. Clear. and then then they kind of help out that landlord renovating it, and then it was a duplex for a long time, and then they renovated that, helped out the landlord, and then finally got a home when I was in high school and renovated that. And of course, child labor, I'm in there swinging a hammer where I can, or fitting through the attic to start pulling insulation and stuff. Like,
no idea what's up there.
Oh yeah, all the bad stuff. They were good about making me wear a mask, I remember, but anyway, it was. Yeah, definitely framing of some of the most rewarding stuff, like I can appreciate why your pops did that too, because, man, it was fun doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hard work. Like when you go to work, you're going to work.
Yeah.
Can't really take a day off. You're moving a lot of weight every single day, using your head, putting yourself in some sketchy situations, and it's all of it.
But even just slamming a wall together and lifting that up, it's like dope.
Yeah, it's like the end of the day.
Built a wall.
Yeah, that's what my dad, if he talked about the day or it was an accomplishment. Yeah, we stood up a wall, or like that, because it's, you do all the foundational work, and then you finally get that thing, and that's kind of how your day ends, by this 20-foot thing going up in the air.
Yeah,
productive.
Yeah, just like complex Lego,
Yeah, you just kind of touched on. You said like growing up broke. Did you realize kind of how your family kind of fit in like the social sphere?
No, and to the credit of my folks, they weren't always broke. They had some real bad luck when I was young. And so they were making boatloads of money in Fort Mac. And, mom apparently had a driver. She was doing so many deals. She was in the back of a car wheeling, and she was a pro racer before that. So she's got the drive, pro ski racer. So she's got the drive, and so, but yeah, we moved to Red Deer, got an acreage property, and then, I don't know all the details, but it had some flooding issues and stuff like that they didn't have enough money to go to court with. And so lost it all effectively. I was about 4 or 5. I don't know any of that though, right? Like it felt normal to me, whether I was in the fourplex or this, apparently it was big ass acreage, but I didn't know any better. I was the youngest of 5. My older brother's a lot older than me, and there's a big gap, he's 50, call it. And I'm 38. And so, Pops had him when he was 16 years old, and he had his first when he was 16, and, that pattern. And so it's big families, and ours was 5, and I was the youngest, and pretty well insulated from a lot of the stresses of growing up in that tumultuous financial scenario. I feel like my siblings probably sheltered me from a lot of that, but also basketball did. Like when the house would inevitably erupt in chaos and fighting and, the stresses of trying to raise a family when you're poor, at a basketball court, in a basketball. So I'd get out of there and just go shoot hoops. We built one hoop. We found a backboard in the back of one of the school's garbages, and me and my pops grabbed it, cut it out. He showed me some artistic skills. We painted the Tasmanian devil on it.
Awesome.
And right around the time of Space Jam, right? And so we wove together a gold chain mesh. This thing was the baller, and like a 4x4 post.
Yep.
Adjustable. We could take some pins out and bring it down. And pretty cool to do that. And I would totally escape to the court,
like from a young age?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Elementary school. And that's how I coped with growing up poor. I didn't notice it because I didn't understand that, what meals were different. We'd go for Sunday dinners at a really great family friend of ours, Angela LaMarche. She actually works at Cold Garden now. And she would bring our family over every Sunday and feed us properly. And but yeah, I didn't know any better.
How'd you get on basketball? Why is it that young? What was your like?
I don't know. I was a bit of a baller, I think. I loved hip hop. My siblings listened to Bow Down, West Side Connection when that came out, and I'm young, right? And so I don't know exactly. Part of it was probably finances. Loved going to the ODR and playing hockey. Growing up in Red Deer, of course, like they have Zambonis for the community outdoor rinks. Like it's amazing if you love hockey out there. But, the registration fees are way out of our league. So I think probably basketball was something that just was afforded to me because it was a pair of shoes and a ball.
Yep.
But loved the culture for some reason. I don't know why, but really dug into the hip hop culture. Some of my best friends, they also resonated with that. My best friend and best man at his weddings from St. Lucia, and then some homies from Vietnam and Cambodia. And like, we all just like rallied around this like hip hop culture and basketball, hand in hand. And so that was around like right in the 90s with Jordan, right?
Oh,
so,
I was just going to ask you who were
Jordan.
looking at
My
that?
man was Allen Iverson. Yeah, that was my champion for getting into the sport and mirrored my game after him. But the era of Jordan was just like basketball was big on people's minds then, right?
I watched the Bulls. The Bulls played every Sunday. So like in the 90s, must have been in the 90s, I would watch the Bulls play every Sunday. And Jordan was the reason. And then ever since he retired, I haven't really watched it. It's amazing that, as younger, you have more time in your hand,
Right.
but like when one figure can actually create an audience like he did, it's like generational. Like it's crazy what he did.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that can be a whole podcast just delineating the new age basketball to the old age basketball. And you see it on social media all day long, that battle.
Yeah.
I mean, like, so I totally appreciate how, the game back then, people could rally around a character like Jordan, his work ethic and just like the raw passion on the court. Not making excuses for trades or anything like that, not building a team around him by virtue of trading, building a team around him by virtue of building the team up. That's where people can really connect with, I feel like. That's why it really resonates versus like, you make a dream team on Miami for a few seasons. It's like not as cool, but I still love the game. I'll watch some playoffs here and there, but I don't watch it really.
It's fascinating, though. Like it's this driving force behind you for so many years.
Yeah.
Here we are at this age. I got a decade on you, but it's like you can appreciate sport, but there's not enough time. You can't allocate that kind of energy towards that thing because it's just.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I play on 2 teams.
Oh, you do?
And
Amazing.
At the chagrin of my body, but it's important to me. And that time that I play on those teams would probably be spent watching the sport.
Yeah.
But it's an either or.
Yeah, it's better to be playing.
As long as I can. Yeah, for sure.
Elementary, junior high, basketball kind of got your attention, hockey a little bit. Is there anything else that like you were into back then, or was it?
All the sports. There was a means of keeping me off the streets, I think. Like it was an easy way for the mom and dad to know I was somewhere. My family around when I was 4, we started Métis jigging. So I'm Métis. My mom comes from some European heritage, and my pop's from the Red River settlement. So he's Cree and Prairie Cree, and so we. Hence the blonde hair from mom's side and the bone structure from pops. And they taught me how to jig when I was 4.
What's jigging?
It's Métis step dancing.
Okay.
So back in the day, Red River settlement, fur trading's happening around Winnipeg. You got European settlers, you got First Nations people, and they're helping each other out. The Europeans want pelts, and they're doing trading. They're trading for goods and services. And I imagine this is how it went down. So you're working hard. You're in the bush, you're trapping, you're doing whatever, you're skinning pelts. At the end of the day, you want to celebrate with your pals. Different cultures, you're around a bonfire and you're celebrating the big day and you're teaching each other your culture, you're dancing. So Métis step dancing is funny because you can imagine probably river dance, people probably recognize that.
Yeah.
Top tight body and high knees and tap feet, and then First Nations dancing, if you've seen like a grass dance or the jingle dress dances, and lots of body movement, and legs are they can go a little bit wider and more thompy, and so it's just, I imagine those cultures at the end of a big busy day, they're just like, this is how I do it, and they just combine, they smash them together, and so. Jigging is a combination of those cultures, Celtic step dancing and First Nations dancing. And so it's got that, the dress and wear of the Europeans, but it's got a sash like what you recognize for a lot of people in Quebec, like a bonhomme de carnaval, like that red sash.
Yep.
And then it's got some like kind of more fluid movements to it. And there's a basic step dance. Red River Jig is the one that is quintessential to the game. And there's like regular basic footstep dance. And then when the volume kind of drops in tone on the fiddle, that's when you do your fancy steps. And that's where there's a lot of influence from the First Nations side. So between that and sport, that was like mom and dad were like, you got to do these things. And even still, I got into trouble. Yeah.
Creativity.
Yeah.
The culture piece for you, were you educated early? Did you have to be educated, or it just was what you were just surrounded all the time? So it wasn't like an education. You were just, that is your world. So there wasn't anything to be taught?
That's such a good question, because I don't think my parents necessarily knew the importance of the theory side and the like book side of learning about our culture.
Yeah.
So as we get older, we're learning more and more about it. And it's not an isolated story where my pops' generation and his parents, they don't like to talk about their history very much. It was a pretty dark period when the residential schools were around. That was only not too long ago. So not very common for us to be having like a father-son talk about our family history.
Yeah.
So when we were younger, we learned the dance, and we were the best. We traveled the country. We were opening the Museum of Civilization in Hull, Quebec. We were dancing at the Canada Olympic Games in Vancouver for 2010. We were doing these sweet gigs and, really showcasing the culture. And, but when it came to the nuts and bolts of like, how that all happened, the theories around like the cultures mixing, all the details that we were sort of getting to reveal more and more on, that's only been revealed to me as an adult.
Yeah.
Also through my pops' process of being asked more about it too. Like he's been asked, for example, they set up an exhibit in the Smithsonian around his community. And so, he was forced to sort of like bring up some artifacts, and like he had all this cool stuff that he probably discounted as whatever, but just hide stretching things and tools and stuff like that it was just every day for them. But turns out it was cool enough to put in the Smithsonian Museum.
Anything else back there, Dad?
Yeah, like crazy big buffalo rugs and stuff like that. So as he's asked more about it, I learned more about it.
That's cool.
But it was never a thing where we sat down early days and was like, what's this about, Dad? And it's like, no, you got to dance to stay out of trouble.
Did you, whether it's sport or dance, did you have a gear? Was it to get good at something? Was it just like, fuck, I got to be here because mom and dad want me to be here? Like, what was your attitude when you got into it?
I think there's a competitiveness for sure. Me and my homie there from St. Lucia, we're both guards, and we're always chasing each other's tail, trying to be the fastest. And yeah, he was just such an incredible athlete. And so we had that, with each other, and that competitiveness definitely pushed me. And jigging was just really fun. I think there was some self-competitiveness, because with jigging, you're against the fiddle.
Yeah.
The faster the fiddler goes, he's trying to out-fiddle your steps. And there's a song called the Orange Blossom Special where the train is slowly picking up speed, and the fiddler's trying to make you dance till you fall.
Yeah.
And so there's a bit of competitiveness there, but it felt a lot different than school sports where you're trying to make a team. I definitely felt that. I wanted to make every team. I wanted to set records at track provincials. I wanted to make the volleyball team, So I think there was some underlying competitiveness that I never really admitted to until my adult years. But yeah, and I probably got that from my mom, because she was a pro ski racer, and she's like, dialed type A, and Pops is just chilling, So I'm like, I definitely got that from my mom for sure.
The dance piece is fascinating to me. The group that you were with, was it a friend group? Was it just this like people from all over Red Deer that came to there? Like, who were these people? Were they like close people, or were they just the dance crew?
Yeah, they were all families in the similar demographic, not just culturally, but in terms of like socioeconomic area. Like they were all looking for something to keep the kids busy with. Yeah. And also the bonus was getting to know the culture. So there's like the Métis cultural center in every city, pretty much, I think. And I think they probably met these families through that.
Yep.
And it's a tight community. You've got your elders, and you've got these gatherings every once in a while. And mom and dad decided to organize this dance troupe, and probably comprised, I bet you there was up to 20 kids sometimes.
Yep.
And it was regular practices, trying to, get some structure around these kids' lives, all ages. We've got group photos of the dance troupe where I'm like super, super young, and the eldest is in high school. We're all learning the same dances, dancing together. There's some dances that are group dances, rabbit dance, duck dance. They're like big group dances with partners. And then there's like individual dances as well. And so it became a tight crew, big family potlucks and things like that. But the origin story, I don't know exactly how they knew those families, but I suspect it probably was through the Métis Cultural Center.
Yep. Like the big gigs, like you got the Olympics and going across the country. When you do, how old were you when you were?
2010,
Yeah.
The Olympics, I would have been right after I graduated university.
So
So in my
you
early
knew,
20s.
You knew it was a thing. Like when you're going to the Olympics to dance, you're like, okay.
Oh yeah. I was having beers after, like right at Robson and whatever that square was. Like it was an amazing experience.
Were you like, when you get to that level and you're like, there's all those eyeballs on you? Was it nerves? Is it excitement? Is it a mixture of both? Like what'd that feel like to actually like get to that kind of level?
I never remember there being nerves. I was a bit reckless up there. Like I remember viscerally this moment dancing in Ottawa, and we're in a big stage, huge crowd, in my eyes, it was thousands, it was probably hundreds, but at least hundreds. And I was like doing the broom dance, which is a dance that it's like a figure eight through your legs, and your legs are going real high. And I just want to go as fast as I can, not even thinking about the crowd. So much so that I just like launched this, did my shoe just wails into the crowd. And there's no nerves. There's no like, it wasn't like so embarrassed. I was just like, that's hilarious. And people really, when we were dancing, it feels informal. Like we're like encouraging people to clap, and it's like, there's no wall there.
Yeah.
So I think that, and that was imparted through, my mom and pops, like they'll be getting the crowd going while we're dancing, to let them know you can just like hoot and holler.
Yeah.
This is not like you're going to the Jubilee. So it's probably because of that. It felt comfortable on stage.
You've alluded to it a couple times, you being an asshole or causing shit or however.
I didn't say asshole.
However you want to put it.
That's Costello's job.
Was it just situational?
Yeah, just being a kid, like, it's just straight up doing kid stuff. I don't know. I was hanging out with older kids that were in high school when I was in middle school. And, so like sneaking out of the window at night, doing really harmless stuff, but like you think you're being bad. And I remember, literally pulling up sewers and going to like hang out in sewers to be like, what is this? There's a whole underground system here. And you're like, it's like midnight or something. And little stupid things like that. We never caused a lot of trouble. Like definitely no harm, we weren't tagging stuff like that. Although we had friends that did that, but it was all harmless. Just like breaking the rules.
Just pushing.
Yeah, breaking the rules a little bit. Although when I was 14, mom and dad were out of the, I was getting a little bit more testy, and mom and dad were away, and I took the car for a joyride with all my buddies in it, going to a house party, 14 years old, going to some big high school kid's house party. And one of our family friends, thank God those guys were watching out for us, but they like, of course they ratted me out, right? They're like, hey, your car's not in your driveway. 14. But it's, again, harmless. Like, we're not trying to cause trouble. Just self-harm, really.
Could go bad.
Yeah.
In high school, same dance, sport, was school kind of fit for you, or how'd that enter the equation?
I tried really hard at school, for sure. I was in French immersion. It was important that I learned French, I guess, since kindergarten was in French immersion. Yep. Pop's, his language is Michif, and there's like a French component, and so it's just a mix of languages. But so my French is very different than his family's French, but nonetheless, it was what you could learn in Alberta.
Yep.
And so, it was hard school was hard for me. Came easier to my sisters for sure. But still got enough good grades. We're talking like 80s or whatever. Like
capable.
Good enough to get in there. But it was hard. And then sport was it. Like just loved it. We're talking like I would run to practice, get up at 5 a.m. to run to the school and then do basketball practice and then run back, so it was that kind of thing. And, and then it was season after season. It was track, which would bleed right into the next sport, volleyball and then basketball. And then eventually, ended up getting into football. But every sport possible. It was just such a great, especially in Red Deer where it can be very cliquey.
Yep.
Sport was a way to like all of the cultures mix, no matter what. You're on the same team. So everyone thought that was funny. When I made Team Alberta when I was in grade 11, and I saw it was so bizarre going to these big high schools in Calgary and Edmonton, Harry Ainley and Ross Shep and these big schools and like Churchill. We had guys that were on the team on Team Alberta that we'd go and practice in those gyms, and you'd see them just had to like separate based on their crews. Like there'd be like the drama kids or like, the like guys with the Chevy S10 low riders, but they're always very distinct where in Red Deer, because we were so small, you couldn't be that distinct. You would have no friends. Yeah. So sport was a way for us to like connect, but then it forced us to maintain our friendships beyond the court. Because otherwise you'd just be riding solo pretty much. So yeah, sport was really important to me because I'm a social dude, and I thought it was because of the athletic side, but I think it was actually more to do with the social side.
Just being around the energy around the team.
Yeah, totally.
Through any of the sports, did you have like aspirations to do something after high school with any of them? Like, were you chasing scholarships or were you looking at anything like?
No, I had opportunity to play college ball, RDC, University of Calgary, flagged a red shirt possibility and pretty small time stuff. Would have loved to have done it, but I had like a bit of a moment after playing Team Alberta. We went to nationals. We in Halifax. It was the main reason I played Team Alberta was because I had this opportunity to go to Halifax. Otherwise, I would have stayed with my club team, and our club team in Red Deer probably would have beat that Team Alberta team straight up. And our coach was pissed that me and my buddy Charles, we both went on Team Alberta. But it was an opportunity that that was a real crossroads for me. Yeah. And a moment where I was like, there's more to life for me than sport. And so much so that I used sport to travel. And we got second. We got silver that year at nationals. Absolutely throttled by Ontario, which happens all the time, and that was eye-opening. I was getting dunked on by Ryan Smith, like this put-back dunk. I'm like, oh, shit. We're here. Oh, yeah. And so, that was a moment for me when a bunch of my pals are going to go play college ball. That was hard, but I was like, I'm not going to, I played the score tournament down in Seattle with guys like Marvin Williams who were getting drafted after their first year to go straight to the NBA. And I was like, well, I'm not going to be there. If I am, it's like a real shot in the dark. And I was ready to just really appreciate the game. Yeah. I knew I was going to keep playing forever. But I pivoted in that moment. And so didn't play any college ball, none of that. And just loved the rat game at the Golden Red Gym at UFC. Amazing. Every Friday. Just and just made friends for life with those guys I still play with.
Yep. What did you do coming out of high school? Was post-secondary like on your radar? Or did you have a goal of what you wanted to be when you grew up?
No idea. No, I was 17 and no idea. I knew I wanted to go to school just based on, I think that was the right thing to do. Seeing my pops not do his high school till he was in the 40s or whatever, and like, okay, well, I can do this. This seems to be the logical next step. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be an architect. Love buildings. Part of the reason Calgary is so great, it was a bit blind for sure, but it had to do with finances. There's a real possibility where I got some scholarship through the Belcourt Brasso Métis Awards that afforded me the ability to go to university. Otherwise, I probably would have ended up working to try to make money. And there's really great paying jobs out of high school when you're out of Red Deer at that era. Yep. Oil and gas was booming. You know, you could out of Red Deer go work in the oil sands for 90,000, driving a big truck that they'd pay for your education on. Those temptations would have probably pulled me away from school.
Yep.
But lucky enough that there were some people who were trying to give back to the community, and I applied for these scholarships. I applied for some random ones too, little $500 bursaries, everything that were like totally unrelated to what I was and doing, and that nobody else applied for. So I was like, great, I'll take that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so did that. And then, that afforded me the ability to come in, and I just went into general studies, no real idea, did some computer science stuff, did some engineering stuff, eventually sucked at all of that, like so bad.
Just because you were like smart dude, you had to work for it, but like smart enough guy, just because you weren't interested or you just couldn't like...
Partied. 17 years old.
Just ripping?
Out of Red Deer, you know, in res.
You were here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In residence. And I was like, I love hosting. And so I was like really honing my skills hosting. And it was kind of funny. Like that first year, I ended with like a 2.1 GPA.
Oh, wow, you worked at it.
Tough. Yeah. And indefinitely, to this day, not allowed back on residence campus.
Oh, wow.
You were allowed on campus, but not residence. And so shout out Rundle 4. That was the floor we were on. But yeah, I just was like hosting big parties.
What was it? Like why'd you go there?
It all came to a head because I was just throwing a, BSD, Bermuda Short Stay, last day of the year, big party.
Oh, yeah, dude.
I'm throwing a big kegger in the room. And we did it. We had it dialed. Like we had my one buddy that I went to Team Alberta with, Charles. We had like a UPS suits because you couldn't bring big volume beverages on to the residence. So we had this Frigidaire box, like we were on a dolly from a UPS guy hauling in a box, like a mini fridge. And our 6'7" buddy Charles covering the camera so then he kept on the thing to go to a different floor. Oh yeah, we were dialed. This was Ocean's 11 shit. And we wheel it in and yeah, we have a huge party. By 7 a.m. people are just vomiting. It was bad. Pancake breakfast time. James Tarini, our big building manager, catches us, and I was like, damn, takes the keg, but at the same time he notices like we've rearranged the room entirely. Like we built a sauna inside the room, a steam room, by like stacking one of the beds on top of the desks and polyed all the inside, polyed the floor so there's no mold issues, and had it venting out the window. It was perfect, but using little water cookers with grapefruit and stuff in it, so it was like scented steam room. All discovered at the same time, Bermuda Short Stay. And so James takes the keg away. Like, damn, by 11 a.m., I got my wits about me to go and convince James to give us the keg back. I'm putting my best negotiating hat on. And I'm in his office, and I'm just like, we're going to go off-site. We're not going to be here, man. I promise. Like, last day, gives us the keg back. We take it to the undeveloped part of campus. We're from Red Deer. We love bush parties. And now that's called the University District. It's all full of homes and Cineplex and all that. But that was just bush before. So we hauled the keg over to the undeveloped part of campus and had this huge bush party. Campus Poe runs up on the bikes and we're wasted. And, my buddy gets an ambulance called for him. I get taken to the drunk tank. It was like this whole thing all unraveled in like a 4-hour period. Kicked out of res, got to finish my exams, but that was it. And then came full circle though, because I spoke at Convocation a couple of years ago. But they edited that part out.
Yeah, totally. People have to do some research.
Yeah, because it was COVID, and so we did the Convocation thing through Mike, and that didn't air. But anyway, so that was how it happened. But
did you figure it out eventually? Like, did you go for
the next
2-1? You're like,
the next year, I knocked it out of the park. I decided I wanted to get into Haskayne. And for no other reason than I wanted to do international business. I love to travel, and I spoke French, and I was like, okay, this is maybe a good fit.
Yep.
And so I didn't know though, if I came right out of high school, my 80s would have worked, but transferring into Haskayne, you needed like a 3.85. I was like, oh, so
problem.
Yeah, problem. So but then I learned it was only the last 10 credits that they look at, not the first year. So I was like, okay, there's some hope. So I looked at all the electives that I could jam into that second year, did all the electives, rocks for jocks, all that stuff.
Yep.
And got my GPA way up and got into Haskayne. And then But double-edged sword, the end of that story is on the 5th year, I had all my senior level finance courses because I did all my electives at the start. Right, that was tough. That was not a very celebratory victory lap year.
I'm here, but fuck.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like when you're making decisions like the Haskane thing, you just saw potential. Like you just start thinking about it, you're like, oh, that kind of makes sense. And you move that way. Like I didn't go to university, but I didn't do anything. We're so young, right? To figure all this shit out.
Yeah.
So you're just kind of making a decision based on, I don't know, the best kind of like data that's in front of you. Like, okay, I guess this makes sense. Because was anybody steering you, or is it just like self-guided?
Yeah. No, nobody's steering me, but there was like, I think it was a little bit of sentiment around like, hey, what's an employable degree to come out with? Mm. And also recognizing like I had my ass handed to me in like comp sci 231 trying to build a calculator that didn't even have to do zero or negatives. And I'm like, flunked out of that course. Mm-hmm. I kind of knew that and I didn't enjoy that either. So I kind of was like, okay, well, I enjoy networking. I know I love travel. Yeah. Business in general was interesting to me. At that point, I was already kind of reading about different sort of people's life stories in business, Buffett or whatever. Yeah. So I was always interested about that, not the money side, but the building side. Mm-hmm. And business just seemed general enough that you learned the skills that could be employable. And I didn't know what though, it's like, and in hindsight, I don't know if there's any other way to do it. Mm. You look at some other countries that really, they assess you as a kid and they kind of put you on a path, a very specific path. Yeah. I would not have appreciated that for sure. Mm-hmm. Finding my own way, as clunky as it was and is still, I think is the right way to do it. Yeah. I'm a big believer of not skipping steps, and that 2.1 year, that kick getting flunked out, that's a step I had to go through. I don't care if it set me back. So yeah, there was no real guidance there, but I knew then, even right at the end, I was like, I switched from international business to finance in my final year to be like, well, this is actually way more employable. Mm. I'm like, okay, I'll go be an iBanker, whatever. I've got some super smart friends. I can ride their coattails. And I did. And still buds today. And realized quickly that job was not going to be for me.
I don't know you very well, but I don't know if I put those together.
Yeah, fair enough. So yeah, I'd stumbling through it. Didn't have any guidance.
The travel piece, when did that kind of catch your interest? Or was the Halifax trip the first kind of, was that the one that kind of started it all? Or
in elementary or middle school, we had this program in French where we went to Montreal and Quebec City in grade 8. Mm. And it was an amazing thing. And it was a lot of weight on that because it was not a cheap thing. But that was so cool. And I just remember, I still have photos of it. And just taking photos of the buildings in Quebec City. And just, in our own country, you have this total departure from the culture that I'm used to. Yeah, that's what really kicked it off for me. Mm. Yeah.
When the opportunity presented itself, you were like...
Yeah, and then the next one was Halifax. And it was like, okay, that's like... Maritimes, cool. Like, let's go see what that's all about. That was a really hard decision because my coaches were really trying to convince me to stay on the club team, which would have made a lot of sense if I cared about the sport as much as they cared about it. Yeah. I really feel bad for them because they put a lot of work into us. Mm-hmm. And, they understood it. Yeah. It's an elevated team too. Even if I was trying to make teams elsewhere, it would have made sense to play Team Alberta. Mm. But, that's how passionate I was about trying to just like see another part of the country. Mm-hmm. And, but I didn't take it lightly. Mm-hmm. And it was like that kind of ownership of the severity of the decision that I was like, yeah, travel is really important to me.
Mm. Coming out of university, graduate, any idea what the path looks like?
No, I had, me and a buddy, we started a landscaping business in school, like a lot of people do.
Yeah, classic.
And we had our $800 truck too. Mm-hmm. It was like Costello's.
Did you spray paint like a sign on it?
No, we had magnet signs. Okay. We were smarter than that. Yeah. So when it broke down on the side of the highway, we could pull the magnet off and not get skewered on 660 talk, Yeah, we had built it up to 3 trucks. We had a construction division, and then we had about 12 of our buddies pushing lawnmowers, and then we do, just laboring on building retaining walls and stuff like that. And then graduated, sold it again for virtual pennies, but
did it?
Did it, and it was a basement deal. Some guys saw the ad on Kijiji and came down, and we were negotiating what the value of these assets were, and I want to keep that shovel for whatever. And so, really great lesson, and was riding high on that. Met that theater girl and took that opportunity. I was, I did a little bit of a stint working. Somebody I did a retaining wall for, or some job. She called me back, Karen Barry. She was in commercial real estate. And so I'm like, well, I'm actually applying for banking jobs. Now that I'm graduated, sold that company, applying for banking jobs. And she's like, well, while you do it, come do some data entry. And I do it, and I learn the business. I learned she's doing commercial. She's selling buildings. She's focusing on mid-market stuff, $2 to $30 million properties. No leasing, really, all kind of investment sales. Yeah. And so I'm learning it, and she's like, well, why don't you just keep doing this? I had some job offers. And she's like, we'll pay for you to get your broker license. So I became a commercial real estate broker.
Just like opportunity presents itself. You're like, this, I can see it.
Because it was interesting. It combined some things that I love. I love buildings. I love like interacting and networking. And it was I had the tools doing discounted cash flows and things like that I had the tools that she didn't necessarily have. She was an amazing person to learn from, because she had, just through sheer grit, she grew her career in Toronto. Being a female in investment sales in Toronto in that industry is hard. Hard in Calgary, let alone Toronto. Yeah. Anyway, she moves to Calgary, trying to open up her own firm, does it successfully. Still a glass ceiling scenario for sure. So it was really cool to learn from her, but she didn't have necessarily the technical skills that I had. So we were a great partnership in that way. I did the DCFs, the discounted cash flow stuff, and doing the evaluations on what these buildings are worth. And then also the marketing stuff, learning Photoshop and like doing rebranding the whole thing. Cool. And that really got me the ability to like cut my teeth and learn how to, one more step up from the landscaping thing. Like now we're talking real money here. This person's trusting me to rebrand this, do the rebrand brochures, and this is this building sale specifically means $500,000 to the business if we sell this thing. And so that was probably way too much responsibility I'm still partying. And so you can imagine when the checks start coming in, it was just like a wild time. We start getting into that, but I'm like, hey, I'm going to go to Montreal for a year. I try to break into the industry out there. They weren't having it. I don't know if it was the Albertan accent on my French language, but it was something that it was really tough to break into that. And so I just chilled. I had some money and I was just chilling, and I took a dishwashing job for the first time ever. I loved it. Dishwashing behind this Greek restaurant on Saint Laurent, busy place. And all the people working there were musicians and whatever, just trying to make a go of it. Yeah. And then a tie job on St. Catharines, like selling ties. And like, that was cool too. And just working that stuff was one of the most like cherished times, and hanging out with these weird theater kids. And then after a year, I was like, this place is not good for me. I got to go back to Calgary, and really sunk my teeth into that business with Karen. And so did that for 5 years. Made boatloads of money, got really lucky. Yeah. And then the rules changed in Alberta around beer production.
What year is this ish?
This is around 2013. The rule changed. And so 2014, I think, is when Blake and I had a conversation at roughly 4 a.m. at a party. And, we were living. And so, we would always kept in touch. Blake and I, my business partner, and we met in university. Okay. And, we were, he's kind of had this idea percolating, and he's just running it by me. And we decided that we'll do it together. In that moment, he asked me to be like, you want to do this with me after you've done this commercial real estate thing? And I was like, well, it's just probably good timing because I was getting a little bit disenfranchised with the commercial real estate thing. The money was great, but I could definitely see myself 20 years from now. And the industry is awesome. There's amazing people in it, but it tends to, you could see some people change in that. In the short time that I was there, you could just see these young people that were in it that were having their values eroded and their characters eroded. And yeah, some people that I looked up to professionally on a personal level, I was like, I don't want to be like that person. So that was a real tough decision because I knew it was going to be painful for Karen for sure. This was basically a 2-person show and we were operating on a lean budget. And it was great, but it was just another one of those things. This opportunity kind of arose, and I was like, "This feels right." So I didn't even wait till we got it going. Like I just sunk my teeth into it. I quit. Took that year. I got a place in Inglewood. I was living in Marda Loop at the time. I knew we wanted to be in Inglewood or Ramsey, and so I quit. Got a house in Inglewood, and started working on the business plan. So it's full 2 feet. There's no way, and yeah, that was not the best decision because we're totally renovating this 1928 bungalow at the same time as trying to start a business. So yeah, it was, that was the pivot. Rules changed and that triggered Blake to be like, yo, Dan, now anybody can start a brewery. You used to have a minimum production limit, which was just a barrier to entry that the families that owned all the breweries back in the day just probably lobbied the government to be like, hey, we should do this. This is a good idea. And it's like, Protection. Let's just make sure you need $5 million to start a business. Wonder who that's going to help. So anyway, Alberta got wise and abolished that altogether. And I was like, yeah, this sounds dope.
You've slid this in a couple times, the partying thing. It's interesting because, like I told you before, I was in the clubs for north of a decade.
Yeah.
It can do one of two things. It can chew you up, you're drunk, you're drugs, whatever it is, or you get exposed to super smart people. You're around community. There's like culture. There's an energy to it. So it depends on what you learn when you're actually, wasting all your money buying booze all the time and what you actually pick up.
Yeah, man.
How did you, and the reason I'm asking is because when you decided to partner the brewery, you had all this experience in partying. I don't know where you went and what you did, but like, was it ever there? Were you ever in these rooms when you were partying, be like, I think I could like open a restaurant or I could open a nightclub? Did you ever go there, or was this brewery thing like just out of left field?
Never once thought of it.
So sorry. As you're partying, doing your thing, did you understand the community that you're in? Like, was it nice walking in these rooms and high-fiving like the entire bar and like that? That's
how I knew this was the right decision. Like my gut was like, yo, let's go try this. But we were going to try it in a new way, which is a tangent. But we had to change some bylaws to do what we're doing. And but I loved hosting. Like I was the guy in college with the 300-person house parties, but we would dial it in. Like I would have construction fencing on the front lawn to separate the neighbors. We'd have some guys showing up with a kiosk to sell sunglasses. We'd have a guy cooking crepes if it was BSD. Like the experience was so important to me. And this was a bungalow in Charleswood. Charleswood, the Manor, we called it. And it was, DJ up, DJ down, and the whole shebang. The customer experience was like so important to me. I'm running around, and my pals always laugh at me for this, but I'm like, I'm not ever, they don't think I'm enjoying my own party, but I am. I'm like ripping around, making sure things are right, and like quick high five, but I gotta go, So I was like definitely honing my skills in right through traffic flow and stuff, like all that stuff in hindsight. I was paying a lot of attention to that, and right down to making sure the neighbors are cool, going knocking on doors, making sure they knew what was up. I'm not trying to surprise anybody here. And we'd have this sweet old lady. She was got to be in her 80s. She'd come across and come and hang out at the party sometimes. So that never really thought of it like, hey, I'm going to open a bar someday.
It's crazy what you learn though, right? Yeah,
totally.
Like
and it just fell into the lap. And then in hindsight, I'm like, oh yeah, it turns out I should have been thinking about
do
opening
this.
a bar, but
Isn't that interesting? Though I feel, what you're doing is creative, right? Like this isn't the typical path. You've taken a different journey, but I do think that's why the show's fun, because I get to hear it, have all these things that actually make sense of like, oh, that's why. Because some people look at you like, oh, you're lucky. How'd this thing happen, right? But there's all these little details like that. Being the guy that's running around like dialing in his own party, like who does that?
yeah.
It's different though, right?
Yeah.
Which then speaks to why you're doing right now is different. So that's why I'd like to go on these tangents and connect the dots.
Yeah, the luck thing is really funny because the luck is there, but you got to see it, right? And like, I one memory I have as a kid in those tiny little houses, I had this poster of a shadowy silhouette, cheesy poster. It said, it's like if you sell enough things for the book fair or whatever, you get these prizes. And I chose a poster that said, like, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And I remember that. I've literally lived by that. and it's like, the luck is a factor, but if you see the river coming and it's flowing and you're working your ass off, there's no sense paddling upstream on that thing. Like, you got to roll with it. And you can see some real hockey stick growth if you jump in the river at the right time. And I find really all of these instances of pivoting have to do with timing that jump. And I'm just like, if it feels like you're paddling upstream, it's probably not the right path.
It's a very like gut intuition.
Totally. Yeah.
It's so vague, right? Like
it is, but everyone knows it, right? Everyone knows it.
We think, right? I guess everyone might know.
Not everyone pays attention to it
or trust it.
Yeah, or trust it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a leap for sure. But the more you trust it, the more you realize it's like you are willing to give into more of the luck side.
Yeah.
Knowing that it's got to be built on a foundation of hard work for that luck to even reveal itself. But yeah, it's the gut thing, man. The more you practice it, the more you can trust it, right?
It gets fun.
It's never done me wrong. I mean, in the eyes of my folks, maybe sometimes here and there, but.
So when you guys do this, when you decide to do the brewery thing, just paint the picture of what that looks like in 2014. And yes, the legislation changes, and there's a smaller barrier of entry. But like, what does the scene look like? Big Rock's around. There's a couple of bigger ones. So what does it look like when you guys decide to stick your head in the game?
Yeah. We knew when we put our heads together, and so to bring it back to early origin idea, like kind of a funny story with some more UFC alumni. Blake had this fascination with Ravinder Minhas, Minhas Brewing, because he's like, oh man, like that guy's like loaded. He had the cheesy Hummer commercials and stuff. And he's like, that's dope. He's like, I could probably do that, but kind of forgets about it until we're partying at whatever, 4 a.m. And he starts percolating again. So we put our heads together and we're like, what is this going to look like if we do this? And we knew we wanted a different model than what existed. The Big Rock that existed, the village, the tool shed, and they had a production model and then a very small tasting room, if anything at all. And that was because the rules didn't allow for anything larger, unless you had a full commercial kitchen, in the case of Last Best, for example.
Yep.
And so we had to change the bylaw. So in the time that we just assumed, we found a piece of real estate that I knew was going to be awesome. This derelict part of Inglewood. It had bum encampment around it, needles around it. The only business there at the time was Smith Built Hats, where Old Beautiful was, RIP to the building. And the Smith Built building, which is beautiful now, that was a dilapidated grain elevator. And the field across the street was, Brian Hansen at Smith Built, would tell me about the stories of this lady named Sally, who's like behind this evergreen tree, and the concrete trucks, that's the plants just down the road, would stop there, park. Sally would jump in the truck, jump out, and that's what that corner was in 2015, 2014.
You're like,
and I'm like,
prime time.
This is the spot.
Which it goes to the background, right?
So it was our building was Mr. Wrought Iron Canada. And that was Michael Morozoff and Michelle, his partner. They were running that business, but it was shut down at the time. It was done. It was finished. It was they were retired, And so the building was vacant. We found it. We were banging our head trying to find real estate, and we just like, last ditch, let's go on Kijiji or like whatever. And we find this thing on Kijiji. We're sitting at my place. My place is in shambles too. It's renovating. and we're like, oh, cool. And we could feel it. We're like, this is like, mom and pop landlords for sure. Let's go talk to them. Maybe they're going to hear our story. And they really resonated with our vision. They also built that building. Michael Morozov built that building by himself. He went and got the bricks from an auction for $5,000, cinder block bricks, built this amazing wrought iron welding business. And there were lots of businesses wanting that space. We were competing with, in a couple of years, fast forward a couple of years, we ended up buying the building because Michael Morozov died, and it was put up for a sealed bid scenario. If we didn't win that bid, a developer would have bought it, we'd have been forced out. And we had this vision of 2 breweries with these 2 tiny little industrial buildings, but on the other 3 corners of that intersection would be these big towers, like you're coming in the East Van Cross in Vancouver, and because we knew the Green Line was going to go there. Even though the city was doing their engagement around like, hey, where should the station go in Inglewood and Ramsey? And like, it's like, well, we think it's going to go. I think there's a good chance it's going to go here. And so yeah, we got the building, and then we also just took a leap of faith, knowing that our model that we wanted, which was going to be taproom focused, was going to be allowed. And then, as we're going through the permitting to get the manufacturing license, we are meeting with Laurie Kimber. He was a code guy at the City of Calgary, senior planner, and he was in charge of our land use change. We had to change our land use. And he happens to also be the guy in charge of rewriting the microbrewery bylaw. And I was like, this is perfect. So he's leaning on me for what he thinks would develop a thriving brewery industry. And through my travels through, Costa Rica, England, like all over the place where these models exist in they have different elements. I'm pitching to Laurie, hey, let's combine all of the elements. Let us have a big occupancy for the public space without a commercial kitchen. We've got a commercial kitchen. It's a huge factory, like that is the kitchen. Like let us have dogs, all these things have been done safely throughout other parts of the world. And Laurie, such a legend, he must have just had, I don't know, to this day, I don't know whether he was on his way out in terms of retirement or whether he was just like, had just such a boss amount of respect around the city that you get met with a lot of no's when you approach the city with innovative ideas. And this was a scenario where I found myself at a boardroom table at the City of Calgary with the likes of Jim Button from Village, Graham Sherman from Toolshed, and some real leaders in the space. And we're sitting here pitching to Laurie, like, hey, here's what the parking ratios should look like. Here's what, for this to really thrive. And, fast forward, like, he just nails it. I go to sit in on council to see if there's any room for comments or anything. It doesn't even have to happen. Everyone's like, yep, like motion approved. And we're already, building out the space. Fingers crossed.
We got this.
And so we opened the gates with this massive tap room and owe all of our success to that moment. It would have been a real slog otherwise, building it otherwise, because the model was built on using the tap room as our marketing engine and not putting the wheels on a sales team from the beginning because the margins are low. I don't know anything about distribution and logistics, but I know about hosting people, and Blake knows how to make great beer. He started brewing beer years before the rules changed, just out of the garage, trying to drink cheaper. So Blake, no technical training. But I was like, oh, this is good.
I drink it.
I drink it. And and so that was so pivotal, like Laurie Kimber, if you're listening. Thank you.
What year did it open?
We opened the manufacturing facility. We got the license in 2016.
Okay.
Because we really wanted to make the Spring Beer Fest. And that was very important because that was a big deal to us. I didn't realize at the time that that's Canada's largest beer festival right here in our city.
The Alberta?
Alberta Beer Festival. Yeah, Condrat and Bill Robinson and the team. They're the May one is biggest in Canada. And so we really pushed to get product available for that. And we did it, and then the rules still hadn't changed yet. So the bylaw was still going through the motions. And so it didn't pass until January 17th. Well, it passed earlier, but we didn't open the tap room until January 17th of 2017.
Gotcha.
And it was bare bones. Like homies that have been there, like regulars have been there the whole time, or people that have come and then they've moved away and have come back, showed us photos. Like it's like chalk menu written on the concrete blocks, like $5 beer. Like, what do you see in this place? But it was novel, and it speaks to our pillars. Our pillars had nothing to do with it was supposed to be unpolished. And so looking back on those photos, you're like, those values, we really showed those, we really owned those values. Yeah. And fast forward today, it looks a lot different, in a lot of ways more polished, but it's a big departure than if you're walking into like a nice, clean, sterile facility, right? Yep.
And that,
I shouldn't say sterile, it's sterile.
Good catch.
Yeah. But it's a junkyard though. Sterile junkyard.
Do you, like when you say fast forward, it's always interesting, right? Because it's, 2016, 17 to here we are today. And there's obviously story after story after story, which would be like 5 more shows, but like, is it on the path of what you thought it was when it's, that 4 a.m. conversation?
I never would have guessed the success we would have had early.
Why was that? The city was just, the area and the culture was just ripe for somebody to enter it?
I think the reason for the success is because people were really, it was novel for people. It wasn't novel for me. I'd traveled and seen a lot of this. But I knew it was novel for Calgarians to see this factory without a fire separation between the tanks and the public space, to be that close to the manufacturing. Yep. We're at the precipice of this maker market. People want to see where their skateboards are getting made. Yep. And so I knew that was going to resonate. I just didn't think it would be that quickly. Yep. And because, we didn't even have a sign on the building. It was like, and it was a sketchy thing. Like you could see people, if you're looking out the overhead door, you could see people walking up at night, real worried. It was all gravel. We paved it later. It was like all gravel, and they're like walking up, and they're like, they turn around. They're like, there's no way this is it, right? They turn around and you're like running out the door like, no, this is it. We're open. And that was also part of the cool factor though, right? It was like, but unintentionally, but it was like, we know it was going to be off the beaten path. 2 blocks south of the main street. Yep. It's, and Inglewood's not the nightlife spot, that's for sure. So it was like, we knew it was going to have to land on people coming in and exploring our beverages, daytime vibes, chill vibes, and then go and explore our product at the bars and restaurants that buy our beer. Yeah. That was what we built it on. And that still exists to a certain extent, but we never expected the nighttime thing to happen. So now all of a sudden we have, we're cranked at night as well, and the turnover happens, and it was a bit of a hesitation around that, and we try to temper that a bit still, out of respect for the neighbors around us, that's their business. We sell our beer to them, so there's been a lot. That's why people are always like, oh, you got to be throwing shows here. Like, what are you doing? And we've been very, very careful around that. Yeah, because sure, we could make a boatload of money on that, but there's another side of the business, and we want to live there. I have a place there. I designed it to die in that house. And it's really important to me that the community aspect of respecting our neighbors' businesses as well is landing. Yeah. So if ever we do something like that, and we incorporate food more intentionally or live music more intentionally, it's going to be a collaborative piece. And we still don't know how to do that yet. There's a way to do it. I just don't know yet exactly how. The flip side of that coin is, with all that effort, we still have some of the old school bar owners that are like, they'll put us on tap, and then they still look at us like competitors, even though we're bringing 3,000 new people to the neighborhood every weekend. They're like, we just got to take you off. You're a competitor. I'm like, oh man, what, really?
just being slightly short-sighted, right?
Well, it's a clear delineation. When you see groups like, I'll give a shout out to Leopold's, like those, man, they're blowing up, right? Nationwide. Yeah. And they're the most collaborative group. They don't look at it like, hey, you're a competitor with us. They're like, no, let's embrace this partnership. We feed off each other. We're going to resonate with the same customers that also have our same values. And there's lots of pie here for us. And the proof's in the pudding, man. Those guys are opening 4 or 5 stores a year,
Yeah.
you know, and it still feels like home because they're collaborating so much in every one of their markets versus the pub that's really struggling.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I wonder why, man. You're not collaborating with anyone around you. You look at the next license that's opening up next to you and you're trying to like block it from going through.
Yeah, tank it. That idea around like abundance, you know, you said pie, you know, there's enough out there. It's interesting. Do you think you could say that if you weren't in a good position?
Yeah.
The abundance thing is an interesting
Yeah,
idea.
no, and I don't want to discount the struggles of the industry right now because I say that from our model.
Yeah. Fits.
It's not abundant if you are a small format brewery who's leaning into the liquor store model only. That's a tough game. It's a low margin game. You don't get economies of scale either. The regulations aren't always in your favor. And so the bigs are constantly have a competitive advantage.
Yeah.
And I really, really feel for those that, you know, they had a really great concept. And it just so happens that for whatever reason, there's maybe saturation in that specific type of model. I don't know that to be true or not yet because you see some success stories too. But we're still so much in our infancy. There's consolidation happening, but we're still very much in our infancy in this industry. I still think there's room for growth, honestly. And but it's probably sounds like that is pretty sharp for some people right now. And I really do feel for them. And we rally behind these groups. We try to go and support.
Yeah.
But the abundance thing, I don't know that model well enough to know if that feels that way. But I can tell you when our we have one salesperson, we just hired our first salesperson a year ago because we're like, let's try our hand at this liquor store part. And got an amazing guy, Strixie. He can do anything, and it's a slog. This is the most personable, charismatic man you can imagine. And we don't know what we're doing. You know, he's learning from the best though. They're giving him the tips, and there's a lot of tips, a lot of underground tips in that side of the world, which is funny to learn about. But we don't know what we're doing. I never ran a bar. Blake never ran a bar. Like, you know, we never ran breweries or anything. So we're learning as we go and tried our hand at it. And it is a slog out there. Like, it is tough. And we just happen to have this model that we can subsidize these efforts.
Yep.
But if it was just up to that side of it, we'd be in dire straits.
Do you have an idea what this looks like in 5, 10? Like how calculated are you about what this thing becomes?
Not at all.
Yeah.
But we have our visions. Blake and I are big dreamers. We love and when we do something, we want it to be like a wow moment. So that's why we're percolating on a lot of really cool things, and we're just waiting for the right thing.
Yep.
There's 3 paths here. There's the low hanging fruit, and what we should do if we were driven by the dollar is get a manufacturing facility.
Yep.
And grow our production and get a sales team and sell to liquor stores. That's the capacity growth side of the business.
Everything out the back.
Yep.
Yep.
Get the scalability down, get the cost down. That's what makes sense if you're talking to a bank.
Yep.
We're debt free. You know, so it's like we don't have the same pressures that another group might have. And so we get to dream big, and for us, we're hanging on to that with our fingernails because we both left amazing careers, not for the dollar, you know, because we can impart our ideas onto this business and see if it grows and see what we can do with our communities. And so, you know, what it looks like for us, you know, it's some pie in the sky ideas or a manufacturing facility that's like really memorable, and that we can do a big show at.
Yeah.
You know, show by means of manufacturing, show by means of hospitality.
Yep.
And so there's another world where there's travel involved. You know, that to me makes a lot of sense. To Blake doesn't make so much sense. That one's a real financial decision that doesn't make any sense at all. You know, but which is why we work so great together. But it's you know, there's lots of ideas, and what the future looks like is very different depending on which path decides to reveal itself first.
Yep.
But you can bet that whichever way we go, it's going to be like a splash.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like you said, when it reveals itself, you'll trust your gut that you'll be like, oh, there it is.
Yeah, exactly. And it might not be just external. It could be internal too, like among Blake and myself. Our passions might shift,
Yep.
Stuff like that. But we're no shortage of ideas. And as you know, execution is everything. And right now we're just still in ideation and putting the pieces together on some stuff.
Yep.
But it's not like we're jumping in 2 feet with anything right now.
Thanks for doing this. It's just cool I'm born and raised Calgarian.
Yeah.
So I've known about you guys, from the early days. It's just cool to finally meet. It's cool when you hear the name and Costello puts you up, I'm like, it's cool to hear this story. And what I find fascinating is like when I was jabbing you just about throwing house parties and being that dialed to now hosting a party 6-7 days a week, essentially. It like makes sense. And then you throw in the commercial piece that you had that background, you actually knew what good value was and there's so many interesting data points. This idea doesn't seem so obscure.
Totally. Yeah. In hindsight, it's exactly all the right pieces to the puzzle. It's almost looks intentional.
Yeah. With zero planning.
Yeah. But it's not. Yeah.
And that's why these stories are really interesting because, like I said, what we talked about earlier, people see you and Blake as lucky. Oh, they're so lucky. Oh, they just I wish I could do that. But that there's all these experiences that allow you to see that opportunity and go there. So that's why I like hearing it because I'm like, oh, my random nonsense, how I move and like what I'm up to, this gives me more validation. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, totally.
It kind of makes sense.
Yeah, you got to trust your gut.
I end the show with one question. When I say Calgary, where's your head go?
My head goes to us being, I feel like we get our energy from being great hosts. Whether that's for small time stuff, like bringing pals over from Saskatoon and showing them the city, or hosting the world at the Calgary Stampede. We take so much pride into making sure we put our best foot forward and hosting. It resonates so much that people want to move to this city in droves. One of the number one things I hear from people moving from Toronto and Vancouver is like how welcoming we are. And I didn't say that word because I think it's actually derived from being good hosts. I think like we're welcoming because we want to be a good host, whether you're a tourist passing through asking a question about where the cool bars are or whatever. We want to impress, we want to show people that this is our place. And I think that's what really makes Calgary special. And I think we resonate as good hosts.
Love it. It's such a cool way to think about it. Because it's like you said, welcoming might be the straightforward answer or thought, but like the level up is the host idea, which really cool. Thanks for making the time.
Thank you. This has been so fun.
Appreciate it. Thanks for dropping off the beers. I'm going to drink one after the second one, so I need to keep my wits together.
Yeah, good. Fair enough.
Yeah, man, really cool meeting you, and thanks for taking the time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.